Naming a variable, a function, a class, it sounds so simple, doesn't it? But you know, it's one of the most critical, high-leverage skills you can have in software development. If you get it right, your code is just a joy to read. But if you get it wrong, well, you've basically created a puzzle box that's going to frustrate your future self and, let's be honest, your entire team. So let's dive in and learn how to get it right every single time.
Look, this isn't just some clever saying. It's a fundamental truth that developers have been nodding along to for decades. Phil Carlton, an absolute legend in programming, just nailed it. And think about it. Cache invalidation is a super technical problem, right? It's about making sure data is up to date. But naming is a profoundly human challenge. It's all about communication and clarity. And it's hard because it forces us to really truly understand what our code is for and boil that purpose down into just a few words.
Now, here's why this matters so much, and it all comes down to this number. We spend about 10 times more time reading code than we do writing it. Just let that sink in for a second. 10 times. That means every single poorly chosen name is like a tiny tax that you and your team have to pay over and over and over again. It slows down every feature, every bug fix, every single new person who joins the team.
So in this explainer, we're going to break down the art of great names. We'll kick things off with why it's so foundational, and then we'll jump into 3 core principles: revealing your intent, creating clarity, and using the right context. And don't worry, we'll finish up with a super simple checklist you can use every single day.
All right, our first and maybe most important principle is this. Your names have to reveal their purpose. A good name shouldn't just be a label. It should be a tiny piece of documentation. It needs to explain why something exists and what it does. Seriously, your code should read like a well-written story. Here's a fantastic way to think about this. I call it the 3 a.m. test. Just imagine you're on call. An alert jolts you awake in the middle of the night, and you see a variable name in an error log. Can you, half asleep and with zero context, immediately get what that variable is for? If the answer's no, well, that name has failed the test, big time.
Okay, let's look at a real-world horror story. What is happening here? I mean, what's in the list? Why is the number 4 so important? And what does the very first element represent? It is completely meaningless without digging through who knows how many lines of other code. This isn't code, it's a riddle.
And boom! This is the transformation. It is almost magical. On the left, we've got our riddle. On the right, the story just tells itself. We're getting the flagged cells from a game board. We're checking a cell's status to see if it's flagged. It's obviously from a Minesweeper game. See? No comments needed. The names themselves are the documentation. So, revealing your intent, that's the foundation. But even with the best of intentions, it's super easy to fall into traps that just create confusion. And that brings us to our second principle. You have to actively create clarity by avoiding false clues and just mental fluff.
First thing, please use pronounceable names. Here's the deal. If you can't say it, you can't have a conversation about it. Just imagine trying to tell a coworker, hey, can you check the Ch2.md? It's so awkward and it slows everything down. Generation timestamp, on the other hand, it's clear, it's professional, and it's easy to talk about.
Next up, let's talk about magic numbers. A raw number like 34 just sitting there in the code is a total mystery. What does it even represent? Why 34? And what if that number has to change? How many places are you going to have to hunt it down? By giving it a searchable, intention-revealing name like workdays per week, you solve both of those problems in an instant.
And then we have the noise words. These are words that sound all official, but add zero actual information. I mean, what is the meaningful difference between product info and product data? Nothing. It's just fluff. Words like manager, processor, or these generic number things like A1, A2, they're all red flags that a name just isn't pulling its weight.
Okay, so our names reveal intent, and they're crystal clear. What's next? Well, the final layer here is context. See, great names don't exist in a vacuum. They get their power from the world they live in. And the key is knowing which language to speak, the language of the programmer or the language of the business. We can actually break this down into 2 different domains. You've got the solution domain, which is the world of computer science. Think job queue, account visitor, repository. These are terms that we as programmers understand. Then you have the problem domain. That's the world of the business you're building the software for. It's the language of your users and stakeholders.
And right here you can see the difference pretty clearly. For a financial app, a name like Portfolio Evaluator is fantastic because it speaks the language of finance experts. For a hospital system, patient record is just perfect. You use the solution domain when you're talking about purely technical stuff, and you switch to the problem domain when your code is directly modeling a real-world business process.
But, context is a balancing act. The golden rule is simple. Add it when it clears things up, but get rid of it when it's just redundant. You don't need to name every single class in your Gas Station Deluxe application with a GSD prefix. We already know what app we're in. That's just clutter.
Here is a perfect example of where context is absolutely necessary. If you have variables for a user's address, just calling them first name or state is super ambiguous. Is it the user's first name or the first name on the shipping address? By adding that little address prefix, you instantly clarify that these variables all belong together as part of a single concept, the address. Problem solved.
So we've covered all the core principles, but how do you actually put this into practice, day in and day out? Well, let's boil everything down into a simple, actionable checklist you can just run through in your head before you finalize any name.
It all comes down to this simple 3-point check. Before you commit your code, just ask yourself these 3 things. 1. The clarity test. Would a brand new developer on your team get it instantly? 2. The maintenance test. Can you search for it easily? And could you say it out loud without tripping over it? And finally, 3. The consistency test. Does it feel like it actually belongs with the rest of the code in the project?
Ultimately, this is what it all comes down to. Every single time you take an extra 30 seconds to think up a better name, you are making an investment. You're saving your future self hours of painful debugging, and you're making life so much easier for every single person who will ever have to touch that code.
Let's end with this powerful idea. We are authors, and other developers are our readers. Our job isn't just to make code that works, it's to make code that communicates. We should be trying to create code that isn't just functional, but is genuinely a pleasure to sit down and read.
So I'll leave you with this one question. The next time your cursor is blinking and you're about to type out a name, just pause for a second. Are you about to make your codebase clearer, cleaner, and more maintainable? Or are you just adding one more tiny piece of confusing debt? The choice is yours.